In today's video, I'll be going over the best beginner cruiser lines to grind in World of Warships for 2026. I have 4 line recommendations I'll be doing today, as well as honorary mentions. I'll be going over the ships in the line themselves, the strength and weaknesses, the general play styles, as well as talking about the builds you'll be taking throughout the entire line. So let's get started in today's video. My first cruiser line recommendation is going to be the Japanese cruiser line, the Zhao line. Now, the Zhao line itself is going to be in the Japanese territory, as you can see here. It starts off with the Furutaka, goes down to the Aoba, the Mayoko, Ogami, Ibuki, and the Zhao. Now, for this particular line in particular, the Furutaka and Aoba are really painful to play, but once you get past those to the Mayoko, the Mogami, the Ibuki, and the Zhao, is where the line really starts to show its colors. You get longer distance torpedoes, a faster reload, while having really strong HE and AP as well. You shoot at broadsides. And this line in particular teaches you not to show broadside, because if you do, you blow up. So this is a definition of a classic kiting cruiser playstyle, where you have powerful HE, usable torpedoes that you can use your amazing concealment, which is about 10 kilometers, and with the 12-kilometer torpedoes, you're able to launch those torpedoes as you're cutting away, shooting at the enemy, and do massive damage. So for the build itself, for the particular Zhao line, it's going to be simple. Now, throughout the entire line, this is going to be the build you're running. You're going to be running main armor in the first slot, then damage control in the second, aiming systems in the third, propulsion in the fourth, concealment in the fifth, and range in the sixth. The reason why you do this particular build is that it allows you to have accurate guns, maneuverability with the propulsion, as well as having the range you need to keep yourself if you have to push into the enemy, then it makes it like if someone's running away from you, you are able to shoot them easier, because if you don't take range, it's really, really painful. For the consumables, you're going to have Hydro and Spotter for the entire line. Now, for the build itself, now this is a 21-point build, but I'm going to break it down for you. From the tier 5 through about the tier 7, I expect people to have like a 6-point commander through that period. Then, when you get to the Ogami, which is going to be the tier 8, you'll probably have a 10-point commander by then. Then by the Ibuki, you're going to have a 14-point commander. And then by the tier 10, you should roughly have an 18 or 17-point commander by then. And then over time, you did then earn your 21-point commander. So this is the build I'll be recommending. The first skill is going to be Last Stand, because this ship does take a lot of engine damage or rudder damage on this thing. So Last Stand is going to be your first one. For your 3 points in total, it's going to be the consumable enhancement. After that, it's going to be superintendent, and this is your 6-point build. For your 10-point, it's then going to be concealment, which allows you to be stealthy, which is very important. 14-point commander, which is going to be on your tier 9, is going to be the top grade gunner. This gives if someone's inside your concealment, it gives you an extra reload buff to your main guns as well as secondaries. After that, for your 17-point commander, which is when you should be on the Zhao itself, you get the Adrenaline Rush. This makes it where if you take damage, you have a higher DPM, so fast reloading guns, torpedoes, secondaries, you name it, it has a better reload. And that's your 17-point build. After that, for your 20-point build, it's going to be Survivability Expert, which gets your HP to 49,400. And if you don't take this and you want raw damage instead, you can do heavy HE instead if you want that one, but it does increase your concealment, so you're less stealthy. But overall, I'd recommend getting more HP. But if you want more raw damage, then go ahead and take that one instead. Then the final skill is going to be Grease the Gears to get faster turret diverse. So that's going to be a build for the Zhao line in particular. And again, I do recommend the Zhao line. It's a classic kiting cruiser playstyle. Really easy to learn on, really fun to play. So let's move on to the next cruiser line recommendation. My second line recommendation is going to be the Hindenburg line, and this is going to be found in the German tech tree. And the reason why I recommend the Hindenburg is going to be because it has versatile, high explosive shells, as well as armor piercing shells as well. So you'll be switching between the HE for long distance fighting, as well as using AP on broadside cruisers and battleships. You also get better protection on the line at the higher tiers, with a better 27mm bow and aft, as well as having the turtle back on the Germans. It makes it harder for enemies to be able to citadel you, which allows you to tank a lot more damage. So it's way more forgiving than other lines. You also get a 6-kilometer hydro, which is very useful at helping fight against submarines or enemy destroyers. So overall, really good cruiser line for kiting and being able to push in if you do need to, since the line's a little bit more tanky, which is really nice. Now, for the line itself, uh, the Nuremberg is going to be the first. Then you have the York, then the Hipper, the Rune, and the Hindenburg itself. The most painful ships of this line are going to be the York and the Rune, and I'll explain why in a moment. For the York itself, it has a really long reload, unlike the other ships of the lower tier, which makes it very painful. That really long reload at tier 7 is really, really painful. For the Rune in particular, the reason why it's painful is because you have 2 turrets at the back and the one at the front. A lot of people just want to use all the guns at once, which if you do that, it has such bad turret angles at the front. You're practically showing your side at all times, and if any battleship just happens to see you, you're going to get death struck. So definitely be careful of that. It teaches you where to mainly use your rear guns, and you can kind of bait out a shot, kind of wiggle a little bit and wiggle back. Then you can shoot with your front gun as well as your rear. If you see them shooting again, you instantly turn back and you repeat the process and you farm them. So let's go and talk about the build I recommend for the Hindenburg line. As you're going down the line, you're going to be running this build all the way down. You're going to do main armor in the first slot, damage control systems in the second, aiming in the third for the guns. Fourth is going to be propulsion. Fifth is going to be concealment, and range is going to be the sixth. If you don't take the range on the Hindenburg and the Rune, it makes it where if you have to push into people when they're kiting, you're going to be really close to them to where it's going to be extremely painful to deal with. And I know you can say you have spotter plane, but spotter plane isn't up for very long. And I don't want to recommend a build that's focusing on the spotter plane as when you're a new player, because it's a little bit complicated. But I'll discuss like that build in a separate video. But this is going to be the build I'll be recommending you guys. Consumables is going to be hydroacoustics for the 6-kilometer hydro. Then spotter plane is going to be recommendation for the third slot. Now, for the build itself, for the tier 5, 6, and 7, you're probably going to have a 6-point commander. Then for the Hipper, it's going to be a 10-point commander. Rune's going to be 14-point, and Hindenburg is going to be 17 or 18 points. And then you'll be able to grind out the commander 21 points at that while you're on the ship. So let me go over that build. For the first point, it's going to be grease the gears. Then you're going to do the consumable enhancement. After that, it's going to be super intent, and this is going to be your 6-point build. So for the tier 5, 6, and 7. For the tier 8, the Hipper, it's going to be concealment. That's going to be for your 10-point commander. For your 14-point commander, it's going to be top grade gunner. That's going to be by the time you get to the Rune. Then for the Hindenburg, you're going to get the 17-point commander will be the adrenaline rush, so that when you take damage, you get extra DPM. Then as you're playing the Hindenburg, you'll get survivability expert for your 20 points. If you'd rather get extra HE damage, you can do that instead. It depends upon your playstyle if you want to be more tanky or if you want more damage. And then finally, you're going to get gun feeder as the final one. This makes it where you're able to switch between shells faster. And that'll be my final skill for the build. Now, this is going to be as you're going down the build itself. I just wanted to showcase the build as you're going step in step, so you know what you're doing as you're going down the line. All right, let's move on to the third recommendation. For my third line recommendation, we have the Des Moines line, which is the American tech tree. The reason why I'll be recommending the Des Moines line because it's a very strong close to mid-range cruiser with radar utility, which helps push out destroyers and helps you with cap control. Also has a 5-kilometer hydra as well, which is really good, as well as starting on the Baltimore, and then the Buffalo and Des Moines. The line gets the improved ricochet angles for the AP shells, which allows you to do way more damage on pinning targets as well. I also believe the New Orleans and the Pepsi Cola also have this as well. If someone wants to write in the comments if it does, I'd appreciate if someone lets me know. Now, for this line in particular, its broadside is very squishy, so you do have to be careful of that. But the 27mm bow that you get does make it where ships that have 380mm shells and below aren't going to be able to pin you. But if they do have bigger shells than that, then they're going to be able to pin your bow, which is going to be big damage. A lot of times how people play this line is you hop from island to island, where you're essentially sticking your guns out on the side. Like imagine there's like an island right here. you put yourself where the island's like right here, where you're able to shoot your guns past the island and hitting the target you're aiming at while keeping your ship dark, by keeping this section here dark. Because essentially how spotting works in this game is there's like a little box here, like in the middle of the ship. If it's past the island, you're going to be spotted, but if you're behind it, you're not from when you're shooting. So if as long as you keep yourself far enough back and you're still able to shoot your guns, then it's going to work out perfectly. Now, for the tech tree line itself, it starts off, as I said, in the American tech tree with the Pepsi-Cola, the New Orleans, the Baltimore, Buffalo, and the Des Moines. For this line, there isn't really any outliers. All the ships themselves are good. The Pepsi-Sola is good. The New Orleans is good. Baltimore itself is good. Buffalo is good, as well as the Des Moines. All these ships are pretty good in the line itself. There aren't really any bad outliers. The only real difference in this line is that the Pepsi and the New Orleans are more open water ships. Then the Baltimore is more of an island sitter where you're using your guns at the bow. Buffalo, you can switch between being an open water or an island sitter. It depends upon your preference. And then the Des Moines is almost a pure island sitter at that point. All right, so let's go over the build itself that I'll be recommending. For the build I'm recommending is going to be throughout the entire line. You're going to do main armor in the first slot, DCP in the second, aiming in the third, propulsion in the fourth, with concealment in the fifth, and reload in the sixth. Now, with the Buffalo, you can switch between range and reload. If you want to be more open water, we're using all 4 of your turrets, you can do the range. But if you want to do reload and be more of an island sitter, using that 10-kilometer radar and hydro, then you can do reload instead. So it's up to you in that preference for the Des Moines line. Now, for the consumables, hydro in the first slot, then radar in the second. Make sure when you go into this line where you start getting the radar at the Baltimore, you switch this to radar. Do not do spotter plane or fighters. It's really bad. Just take the radar. It's the best consumable in there. All right, for the build itself, starting from the Omaha, going down to the New Orleans, you're going to have a 6-point commander. Then Balti's going to be 10-point. So let me showcase those builds now. For the first slot, it's going to be Grease the Gears, then Consumable Enhancement, and Superintend. That's going to be up to your Tier 7. For the Tier 8, it's going to be Concealment Expert. For the Tier 9, it's going to be Top Grade Gunner. This is going to be your 14-point commander. And then for the Des Moines, it's going to be a 17-point commander. By then, it's going to be your Adrenaline Rush. 20 points going to be Survivability Expert for extra HP, which is very nice. And then finally, the final one for your 21-point build is going to be Consumable Specialist for the build. Now, let's go over the final line in this recommendation video, as well as the honorary mentions. The final line recommendation we're going to be having is going to be the Petropavlovsk line for the Soviet lines. So, we can't have a recommendation video for beginners without having the Petro. The Petro line is one of the best lines in the game, and it's for good reason. It's a very tanky cruiser line with very powerful armor-piercing shells, as well as having a 12-kilometer radar and 5-kilometer hydro. It's very good for teaching how to play aggressive, where you're either sitting bow wind using islands to your advantage, or you're going to be sitting kiting, spamming AP shells on unsuspecting targets, as well as farming of HE if you do need to. Now, for the line itself, you're going to have starting at the Talon, and then it goes down to the Riga, and it goes down to the Petro. We'll also be talking about the Bunyoi and the Shores as well, so let's get started on that. So for the line itself, you're going to be using mostly AP shells with the Riga and the Petro. Talon, you can use AP shells mostly as well with HE. And Shores, you can be using AP, but you'll be farming HE a lot of the time, and same with the Bunyoni as well. The most painful ships in this line are actually not really any of them. All of these ships in this line are actually pretty good. And with the fact that the tier 6 through 8 cruisers and World of Warships are going to be getting heals, that's going to be coming in upcoming updates, it's going to make this line even better. So the playstyle of this line, the tier 6, 7, and 8 are all open water, while the Riga and the Petro are more sitting bow wind, sitting at islands. And that's due to the fact that the guns are more focused on the bow for the Riga and Petro themselves. And they have decent armor here on the 50 and the deck armor as well, which allows you to survive longer. So let's go into build I'll be recommending. For the Petro, this is going to be going for the entire line. You'll be doing main armor in the first slot, damage control in the second, aiming in the third, propulsion in the fourth, concealment in the fifth, and reload in the sixth. Also, the shells on the Petro line are one of the fastest shells in the game. So It makes it a lot easier for you to aim as well, which is really nice. For the commander itself, this is going to be the build I'll be recommending. So from the tier 6 through the tier 7, you'll have a 6-point build. The first one is going to be I would recommend the consumable specialist first, be able to get your Hydra and radar back faster, then consumable enhancement, then the superintendent for your 6-point build. Starting at the tier 8, the Talon, you're going to be having concealment for your 10-point build. Then you're going to have top grade gunner for your 14-point build for the Riga. And then for the 17-point build, which would be for the Petro. And while you have the commander on the Petro, you'll be grinding out the survivability expert for extra tankiness. If you want to do extra damage for the AP shells, you can. I highly recommend that. And then you can do gun feeder to switch between the AP and the HE shells easier. But overall, the Petro is one of the best lines in World of Warships, one of the top competitive ships in the game. Just overall, just a true menace. All these turrets on this thing are also 360, so you can essentially have all your guns pointed forward, and then you can shoot your guns off of one side and then shoot off the other. And this also goes in the reverse as well, which means you can have, as you're cutting away, just rotate yourself a little bit, shoot here, and a little bit over here and over there. Now, on the Riga itself, it doesn't have the same luxury as the Petro. You do not get 360 turrets on it, so you're more of just a bow sitter. But the Petro is way more versatile, and the Petro is almost impossible to Citadel, even though the Citadel is right there. It is partially out of, like, above water. It's still almost impossible to Citadel this thing from some reason, so we can just blame Stalin on that one. So that's all the recommendation lines I'll be recommending today. So let's start talking about the honorable mentions. All right, so we have 3 lines for the honorable mentions. The first line is going to be the French. It's going to be the Henry line. Oh, okay, so that's gone. All right, come back here. All right, so it's going to be the French. The French, the reason why I didn't recommend them, and it's like the Henry isn't bad, but it requires a lot more mechanical skill than the other lines, so it makes it a lot of a higher skill level ship, which I don't recommend for the newer players, as well as the fact that mid tiers are exceptionally vulnerable to citadels. In addition, so even if the addition of heals, I don't recommend the Henry line to new players for that particular reason. But as you get further down the game, then I definitely recommend the Henry. It's a lot of fun to play. The other ship I don't recommend, or the other line, is going to be the Vens. A lot of people are going to be talking about this ship, but the reason why I don't recommend it is the fact that it has a very unique playstyle due to the fact that it has semi-armor piercing shells, which means that it allows you to still pen with the HE and do more damage on angle targets or broadside or upper deck or superstructure, but you just don't serve fires. It also has an exhaust smoke as well that makes it difficult to transition to other cruiser playstyles. So I do not recommend this for new players. Even though the ship does have its place in how it's a good ship to play, it is fun overall for the line, it's just not good for beginners overall. And it can be very painful to switch from this ship to other cruisers with how it plays, because it plays completely different. Now, one ship line that I almost put in the video because I think it's actually a really good beginner line, but it just requires a high point commander, is going to be the Adalbert line. The Adalbert line itself is amazing. It's like if you want the traditional brawler German cruiser with secondaries, then the Adalbert is your guy. The Adalbert itself has essentially the same amount of DPM as a Schlieffen does, packed into its really small hull. Great armor, good HP, and great guns. These guns can dev strike cruisers. It's a lot of people underestimate just how strong these 350 millimeter guns are. They're almost as deadly as the Stalingrads as a comparison. They are really good, as well as having a 360 turret in the back on the tier 10 and the tier 9. It makes it where you're going to be able to punish a lot of unsuspecting cruisers. And that's not even your main part. It's a secondaries. You also get 6-kilometer hydro on this thing, as well as a fast control action damage control party, as well as torpedoes that you can use in when rushing in, going brawling out. It makes this ship a lot of fun to play. Great concealment, secondary build, you name it. It's also really good in operations as well. The only ship that isn't really good in this line, there's two of them. It's giving the Deutschland and the Sheer. Those two aren't good in the line itself. They can be pretty painful, but once you get down to the knees back and the Mantifull, this is where the line really shines. These ships do really well in today's meta, really fun to play overall. You play more as a brawler or longer range if you need to. Good in PvE, you name it. It's just overall an amazing ship. But now, the reason why I don't recommend beginners, like I'd recommend it, like if you ground the Hindenburg line, then I'd say, then you can I'll recommend this, because you can just jump your commander over, or you can start leveling up your commander for this thing to get it ready to go. For the build itself, I'll just show it since I do recommend it. I just don't recommend it for beginners. Maybe like as your second cruiser line, I'll recommend it. It's going to be the main armament, damage control, secondaries, propulsion, concealment, and more secondaries, of course, because you also get manual secondaries, and these secondaries have 32 millimeters of pen, so you don't even have to build into IFHE, which makes this thing absurdly broken. You can start so many fires. You can blind fire into smoke with your secondaries, so if someone's trying to farm you, or if you see someone smoke up, you can just blind fire them with your secondaries. You don't even have to use your main guns, and you can just melt them while they're doing that. You can also shoot over islands that normally ship secondaries won't shoot over, which really gives you such a huge advantage. And when using the secondaries, it also increases your range as well. It goes from 12.5 kilometers to 13.6, which just makes this thing an absolute monster to deal with. Essentially, if you're kiting in this ship, kiting away from the enemy, you're not trying to use your main guns here at the front. If you do, you're showing a lot of your sign, taking a lot of damage. You're essentially just using those secondaries to melt your enemies. And you can also aim in particular spots on ships to start more fires. So overall, this thing is such a blast to play. Strong in PvP, strong in PvE. I want to recommend it so bad, but it's because it requires a 17-point commander base to make it really good, and I'll explain why. So on this build here, first you're going to take the grease the gears to turn turrets faster. Then you're going to do the consumable enhancement. For your 6-point builds, you can Pack-a-Punch. You have to build this to get your secondary range up, and then you have to take concealment to get your concealment down to an 11.9. You got to keep yourself stealthy. That's your 10-point build. Then you have to do top grade gunner, okay? And you're wondering, okay, so this sounds like a normal cruiser build. Why do you not recommend it? Okay, at this point, you have to you have to have superintendent, and the reason why is that you have a limited damage control parties. You only have 4 of these base, and you have only 3 of these base. So if you're playing a brawler ship with only 4 damage control parties and 3 heals, you're not gonna last long at all. You're gonna get melted out really fast, and you're just not going to survive the match as long as you like. So that's why I recommend having a 17-point commander, which is right here. So you would go from here, and then 17 points, then 20 points, and the final one would be the consumable specialist. But anywho, overall, all the lines that I recommend in today's video, the Zal, the Hindenburg, the Des Moines Petro, I all think are great beginner lines, like your first cruiser line recommendations. This is, I definitely think your second or third line would do really good here, as long as you're able to get up a commander to 17 points by like the tier 10, like tier 8, 9, or 10 to do really well. That's how I'd recommend that one. But overall, let me know what you guys think of today's video. I try to keep it a little bit shorter for each of the lines I talked about. I know that for the battleship line one, I went a little bit too long in how I talked about each of the lines. So I try to cut it shorter. Let me know what you guys think. And thank you guys for watching today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces.